Greetings, everyone. As Vice President of Global Communications, Lavanya Wadgaonkar is responsible for strategic communications and campaigns, knowledge dissemination, and outreach to the key audiences that Nissan seeks to influence. Reporting to Chief Communications Officer, she leads the entire gamut of communications, including corporate, product, employee, and crisis communications. With more than 27 years of experience, Lavanya has led multinational teams to deliver impact-driven, omni-channel, multi-stakeholder integrated communication strategies across various industries spanning automotive, manufacturing, life sciences, infrastructure, and technology domains. Lavanya joined Nissan in 2012 and since then held various leadership roles in India, Asia, Oceania, and Japan. Earlier, she held a number of leadership roles in multinational organizations like Eaton, Reliance Industries, and Lexmark. She is currently on the International Advisory Board of Modi Women's University and volunteers as mentor for global women in PR. She has been a speaker at many forums internationally, speaking on a range of topics from women's empowerment to future of mobility to the role of strategic communication. A multifaceted individual who has won 2 national awards from the Prime Minister of India for her radio documentaries as producer and scriptwriter, Lavanya was also a co-publisher of a book of stories in translation on women empowerment and has several academic papers to her credit on the language of visual art and cinematic narration. Lavanya holds a PhD in MPhil from Osmania University, India, with specific focus on the language of cinema in India and its effectiveness in representing socio-economic issues. Her LinkedIn profile states what is likely her life's motto: "It's not about why I am at the table, but what I bring to the table." On that note, Lavanya, welcome to Mobility Outlook and our initiative, Women in Mobility. It's a pleasure to have you on our show today.
Thank you so much, Dipanshu. It's my pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for the comprehensive introduction you have given.
Wonderful. So, Lavanya, take us through your corporate journey and the diverse experience across different industry sectors. How have they shaped you as a professional and a leader?
Yeah, I think I have a very unique journey to start off, because I spent maybe best part of my initial years not in corporate, but in the academic world. As you can see, I started off teaching English, but at the same time, I used to be a volunteer at All India Radio, been working with them since I was a college student. And I continue to contribute not only as a producer, but also as a film critique, covering film festivals across. And then I was simultaneously doing some culture columns for the Hindu. Okay. I was actually also volunteering for Audiovisual Research Center in Osmania University. So there was a lot of creative work. That was the beginning of my career, I would say. Till I took the decision to cross to the corporate world. And when I crossed to the corporate world, it was a world where, you know, India was really big in the software outsourcing, business process outsourcing, or knowledge process areas. And when I decided to move into corporate, the first thing I had was obviously an IT company job, where they were looking at me helping to go through their communications. But slowly, I think corporate world kind of adopted me, and I embraced the world, and I moved across industries. And that's actually helped me quite a bit, because I didn't stick to one industry at the beginning. So I had software, hardware, but I was also in diversified industries like Reliance, as well as Eaton, which had businesses at multiple industry levels. So that kind of helped me. But what was most important was these were very learning experiences, because when you are a creative person and doing a lot of creative work, it's you look at the world in a very different way. Because you're looking at the world in terms of stories.
Right.
in terms of culture, in terms of human emotions, because that's what is the basis for creativity. And when you're talking to students and conducting classes, you're actually looking at the future of the world and also the idiosyncrasies that exist in the world, right? So that's the way. But when you cross over to corporate, then you are hit by a little bit more stronger material reality, I would say. But you start looking at stories from the perspective of a corporate.
Sure.
This is where the shift happens, where from a general emotional cultural basis to actually moving to look at from a point of view of one corporate, but also trying to fit them into the story. So I always say that my journey has been a journey of a storyteller evolving in the world of corporate. I still feel that my primary job is telling stories.
Right.
That's what I do the best.
Right. Very interesting, Lavanya. And in this evolving, transforming mobility sector, communicators, of course, play a very, very important role. So how do you view this evolution from a communications perspective?
So communication should always evolve, by the way. If we don't evolve, we become obsolete, because communication's primary focus is talking to the audience.
Right.
And if the audience is evolving, there's no way you can stick to your own traditional approaches to think that people. The second most important for communications is there is a growing awareness and there's a growing consciousness among audience about the bigger good, the greater things that are happening. So it's no longer about talking about a product or a technology or a brand that is meaningful to you, but it's also about how that brand is making a difference to the world. So your job is evolving right from talking about a particular product, and you know this very well because we've been in the auto and we've been driving cars and doing test drives, but we've been doing that for a long time. But we were talking about product. But today, when you see it, it's not just about the product. It's about, is the product making a difference? Is it having a bigger good for the world? But also companies. It's no longer a question of whether or not or a choice, but it is an existential crisis that we are facing when you take climate change. It's an imperative that you cannot compromise on. So there is no longer a choice, right? So the job of a communicator is to be able to position your organization in the right way in the eyes of the audience.
Right. Absolutely. And how do you assess the opportunities in the area, in the mobility area, Lavanya?
I think we are in one of the most disruptive industries, so to say. It's always been one of the biggest impact-driven industries from an economic point of view. Now you see that there is a huge impact of mobility on our way of life, right? So there are plenty of opportunities while there are plenty of challenges. As you can see, we're living in a very ambiguous, uncertain world where everything has a big say on the life that we lead. But the opportunity that we are talking about is what I just said, automotive industry has evolved from being a car which takes you to point A to point B to an industry which is making a difference in lives of people. So it's got a greater impact and greater purpose, I would say, to deliver, and the opportunities of how the technological evolution is happening. One of the biggest thing is technology is also making a level playing field, right? So there's no longer an industry bordered industry segmentation because borders are disappearing among industries as well. And one big thing that I see is the coming together of everyone for the greater good. And automotive industry has a big role to play on that. So we were just talking about energy. It's the same with, if you're in auto, you no longer can ignore the fact about energy. You need to work. So technological evolution, product evolution, but the biggest change is the consumer.
Sure.
It's a big opportunity because you're now talking to people who are conscious
Mm.
of what is happening in the world. So
Very true.
they make it makes more sense, that there's a more meaningful communication that's happening now, I would say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Interesting you say that, Lavanya, because you've spoken about products to technologies to various new forms of energy. And you mentioned COP27 as well. We're headed towards sustainability, what we're talking about, global targets being taken towards carbon neutrality. So from that perspective, making consumers aware of what the brand is trying to talk about, that would, I'm sure, add to your dimension of communications.
Oh, yeah, definitely, because sustainability is at the core of the business.
Mm.
Currently, if you look at Nissan, for example, when we announced our Ambition 2030,
Mm-hmm.
we said sustainability is core business.
Right.
It's not a support function that you just do for the sake of reporting or anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's part of the business because we are talking about moving towards full electrification.
Mm-hmm.
And this means a huge commitment to environment, huge commitment to the safety of people, and
Mm.
huge commitment to inclusiveness as well. So
Yeah.
what we're talking about is making mobility more accessible
Mm. Mm.
to more people.
Sure.
And this is a big commitment. The pace could be different because we're talking about different countries being at a different levels of maturity in terms of automotive industry, but
Mm.
that does not mean that we're not all moving towards a single goal. But
Okay.
this goal is very tough because it's given, we just talked about carbon neutrality. It is given, everybody understands that we have to be doing things that would contribute ultimately to carbon neutrality. So why is already answered, and there's no debate about why.
Sure.
But the big question is how.
Mm.
So this is where things come into picture, right? So yes, we understand, but how do we do it? And
Right.
for a corporate, this is a continuous evolution and a continuous dialogue that we need to have, because we need to keep communicating to the world
Mm.
on the progress that we are making
Right.
and the challenges that we are facing. It's not just about, oh, we are doing this anymore,
Mm.
right? It's about bringing that dialogue to a wider audience, to the wider industry, to have that discussion on what can we do together.
Right.
And that's the job of every corporate, and especially for us in Nissan, we always we said one word we used in our Ambition 2030 is together we empower mobility and beyond. And we had so much discussion around the word together because we said, as one corporate, you cannot make a difference.
Sure.
You need to bring people together to do that.
Right. Right. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Lavanya, as leaders, how important is it in the current context to keep innovating and upgrading oneself, particularly in the field of communications, considering the plethora of tools and options that we have at our disposal today?
I think the whole, I think everywhere, every function is an evolution.
Mm.
So you cannot say that we reached a status quo anywhere, because
Sure.
then you would not be able to. And communication is one field which evolves as fast as the industry evolves,
Sure.
because you need to keep up the pace. But I would say you need to be 2 steps ahead of
Mm-hmm.
your industry, because you need to be talking about what's coming
Mm.
before the industry reaches there.
Very true.
So it's always this big challenge for us on how do we take these steps to be ahead.
Mm.
And innovation is the key. But innovation, if you don't innovate, you are obsolete. So you will be fossilized. So even in communications, that's the case. And today we have so many challenges. And I think the pandemic has woken us up. But it also gave a lot of opportunity, because suddenly, look at this. We are sitting and talking from 2 different worlds, and we are there together, and we are comfortable doing this, which wasn't the case earlier, right? We had video conferences and all. In the field of communication, a lot has changed, because I no longer have to take my executive to a studio to do a television interview. I
True.
could do it in his office,
Right.
right in front. This makes it easier. But
Right.
at the same time, there's a challenge of human communications, because communications is also about emotions and connections.
True.
Right? So finding this balance and going towards a phygital model that helps us do our job better, I think is a continuous challenge, but it's also a very interesting challenge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lavanya, let me ask you about, leadership per se. What's leadership to you? Is this something, a skill that one possesses, or it's an ability that one can actually, get through one's professional career, or is it a combination of different things?
You are never born to be a leader. You always grow to be a leader. This is very important because there is no meaning of a leader if there are no people around you.
Right.
This is important. So if you're born with that, then how do you define leadership over there? This is one important thing. But the second thing is, yes, there are many concepts of leadership that we come across. For me personally, it's about intuitiveness.
Okay.
Because a leader is somebody who can adapt to a situation and bring out the right quality of leadership to help people at that particular point of time, right? Okay. So you can call it this, that, and all kinds of names that come in. However, it's a mix, it's a hybrid.
Sure.
And that's why you need to be able to, I would say, have that intuitiveness to respond to the situation. Okay. And this is very important. Second, leader always grows because every experience adds to your personality, to your character, right? So every conversation makes you think.
Right.
But a good leader is someone who acknowledges that point and kind of integrates that quality into them. Your personality could be sometimes very different from what you're expected to behave.
Right.
You may call it hypocrisy, but I don't think it's hypocrisy because it's not being hypocritical. It's being the right person at the right moment.
Sure.
And that also brings in authenticity because it shows your adaptability. Yeah? So a lot of these words can be thrown, but as I said, it's all about intuitiveness.
Right. Very interesting, Lavanya. And again, looking at the current mobility ecosystem, what are the kind of opportunities you think there are for women?
Huge opportunities. I think I'll begin with the sentence I said a little while ago, where technology is a level playing field. Automotive industry could be one of the most challenging fields for women because we definitely associate automotive with manufacturing, right? So it's a heavily manufacturing focus. And when you say manufacturing, we start imagining, oh my God, it's a lot of physical work. But the industry has evolved so much. Right now we're talking about a lot more areas than just manufacturing. So this has several opportunities that presents for women. But even in the manufacturing area, because of the technological advancements, it's not that everywhere you need a physical ability to lift things or something. Even for men, you don't have to do it because we are making workplaces safer. And safer workplaces and inclusive workplaces allows women to enter any area in auto industry, but it's about the choice that they want to make, right? So you have the choice of really going into the metal, handling the metal, versus thinking of the metal, I would say, or talking about the metal. You can choose. I think there are plenty of opportunities, I would say. It's never been restricting. It's more about having the choice, because the major problem for women is more about how do they make that choice, more than opportunities.
Okay. So very important, Lavanya, what you said. So what would be your message to young women looking at making a career in this mobility industry?
I would say it's not easy. It's not easy in any industry because we are trying to question some of the fundamental behaviors that exist in the society. But you're all together, right? We're all together in this whole thing. There is no glass ceiling if you don't try to look for a glass ceiling.
True.
You just have to push forward and make the right choices. Don't hesitate when you come to a crossroads to think about somebody else's impression about you.
Right.
Go by what you want, not what people think about. And this is something, more importantly, because I come from India and the Indian society, half the time we are bothered about what is my family going to say, what are my peers going to say, what the society is going to say if I have to leave my daughter and go somewhere, or if I have to do this. So don't think about that, because people will talk for a day, but you have to live your life all along.
True. Thank you, Lavanya, for sharing your thoughts with us today. I truly appreciate you being part of this initiative, and appreciate you joining us all the way from Yokohama, Japan. And like you said, we are in different parts of the world, but this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for giving me opportunity. I'm very passionate about this subject, so I love talking to you about it. Thank you very much, Deepanshu.
Glad. Thank you.